Plus Y is it's my first feature film, and it's very loosely. It's inspired by a documentary I made about 8 years ago about the British team going to compete, the mathematical team going to compete at the International Mathematical Olympiad. But it's really a story of a young man, Nathan, played by Asa, who is learning to come to terms with his emotions and a world which doesn't always work for him. He finds refuge, if you like, in the mathematical world because the real world is too hard to deal with, and it's irrational and it's illogical and it doesn't make sense. So he hides in mathematics until he meets the wonderful Zhang Mei, played by Zhou Yang over here.
I love the documentary. I read the script and the documentary around the same time, and I loved it. It was so it really took my breath away. And then I was like, yeah, I got to do it. So I wrote an email to Morgan. I was like, you have to let me do this. It's amazing. And yeah, it's just something that's really capturing. Yeah.
You hope that something's going to come through the door that you connect to, that you want to be a part of, and comes from a very pure place. And this film has all of those things. I can't tell you how nice it is to actually be in a good film. It's so nice. When I first came out of the screening of it, to come out of a screening and not feel shame and disappointment is a really wonderful thing. No disrespect to the many wonderful films that I have done, but it's nice to, it's nice to really, from my first involvement up until where we are now at the brilliant Toronto Film Festival, it's been nothing but a joy. And, all of the ingredients can be there. You can have a great director, a wonderful script, and a gorgeous cast, all of which we have. But the final ingredient that goes into making a film special is alchemy. You can't account for it. It comes or it doesn't. And it has on this film. And that's really wonderful and a huge relief.
I first read the script for this quite a while before we even started production, before we had the financing together, and I love the character. I find with any role, I think I can speak for most actors, you want to have a role which will push your ability and test you and be a challenge and allows you to explore both the character as well as the story and what it means to you. And having a great director on board and a great cast, it really helps you to get to that place.
I mean, we took a lot of artistic license, and for me there was no point in remaking the documentary, so completely from beginning to end. So it's inspired by some of the characters and some of the events in the documentary, but it's also very different. So for instance, Humphreys, played by Rafe, is Nathan's teacher, but there wasn't a character like that in real life, and so Rafe kind of wonderfully invented him, whereas Asa was able to draw from Daniel, who was the boy in the original film, in the documentary, who his character is loosely inspired by, if you like. So we were able to meet with Daniel, and Asa was really able to get inside his head and understand what's going on in there, because it's really quite complicated. And again, he finds sort of dealing simple things like communication very, very difficult. And he was able to articulate what's going on in his head when he's trying to have a conversation and it's freaking him out that he doesn't know what to do with his face, or how to read the expressions on the person's face that he's talking to. So he finds that experience so traumatic that he would avoid conversation or ordinary communication and becomes quite introverted. So what Asa is able to do, which is wonderful, is for somebody who's very shy, a character who's very shy and doesn't speak very much, he's still able to convey an enormous amount, and we really empathize with him as we're watching his performance.